time is now at hand, which must determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves.
Okay, it's the day after the night before. Yesterday we spent an hour and a half in the company of Ubisoft, who presented us with a rather lengthy, in-depth discussion as to their vision and their development span, at least for the opening part of the brand new Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed 3, set in America in about 1775 thereabouts. It'll span a 30-year period and concentrate on brand new character, part British, part Native American, Connor, who joins the Assassins and continues the fight against the Templars, with the backdrop being America versus Britain, oddly enough. And what this means for the franchise is it's pulling back from cities and going out into the wild frontier of America. As we see in a 3-part gameplay demo that they showed us, opens with a beautiful shot, beautiful vista of those frontiers. We were told during the presentation that this frontier land will be about 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers big. And it did sort of bring up the thought and the memory actually of Red Dead Redemption, which Ubisoft themselves name-checked when they talked about the wildlife being the new Croyd life of Assassin's Creed, and it will be a Croyd that Connor will get to know intimately, as we saw during a few pieces of gameplay presentation that saw him hunt animals, skin them as well. There's a lot of talk about making sure the violence in the game would be clean kills. The primary weapons that Connor has in the game is a tomahawk, the usual hidden assassin blade, a bow and arrow, and he can use a musket as well. Using a knife or using a tomahawk is a cleaner kill on wildlife than a musket, and because you're using a musket, obviously have bullet holes and stuff like that. As to what you can do with that fur that you skin, we're unsure at the moment. It may play into a larger and wider NPC interaction, but we'll get to that in a minute. Starts off with the first gameplay clip of us wandering through the frontier and stalking a marching band of soldiers along with a horse-drawn cart. Navigation involves going across, along, up, down, below, trees, bushes, and snow as well. Weather will play a huge part of this. At this moment, the gameplay clip we saw, it was winter in America, and snow drifts will be hard to navigate for Connor. We actually saw parts where he's walking through it, and the snow, depending on the depth of the snow, he'll either slow down or struggle or trip, and it adds a real sort of nice, that continued realistic edge you have with Assassin's Creed, the interaction between the central character and the environment. Like we said, sort of tree navigation, what a wonderful term, it's a bit weird after you've spent like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 games navigating across like cities, across buildings, rooftops and such. But it works. If you imagine sort of that change from Metal Gear Solid to Metal Gear Solid 3, when you go in the undergrowth, it does sort of feel natural after a while. And even though the lines, or the routes to run through the trees aren't quite as clear because there's that much overgrowth and that many leaves in the way, I think it will become a very natural thing when you're running through. And it looks very smooth and lovely when you're sort of jumping hand over hand, leaping run along branches and getting to the point that ended that first segment of the demo, which was a moving leap of faith into the cart that was being drawn by the horse along with those marching soldiers. Pans up and you look over Boston circa 1775, which is the second part of the gameplay demo that we saw. And this gives you an idea of the new sort of NPC interactions that Connor and certainly the Assassin's brands have brought into the franchise. A lot more varied, a lot more dense cities. As you're walking, the scene we saw starts off obviously with Connor getting off a ship, and going along the harbour area and being grabbed by fish sellers, by kids trying to sign up soldiers for the impending war between the Brits and the Americans. And you look around and it's got that sort of, Assassin's Creed always had this anyway, but it feels a lot more like a GTA sort of style now, where there's so much variety in the NPCs, just the characters you see running about. And you see a couple of dogs running through the crowd as well. That's, the guy said, the development team said, the lessons they've learned from utilising and bringing wildlife into the frontier element is now sort of migrating into towns. You get to this point where it's passport control for America at the time, which is a long queue, as we've all seen in security in airports today. Connor, nothing to do with that though, runs through and is chased by guards and kicks in the classic sort of chase sequence we've seen in Assassin's Creed. Now, it's obviously for the sake of the demo, but he runs through the control area and he runs into a marketplace with very conveniently placed market stalls, as well as another horse and cart which you leap across, and you'll see certain the construction of these carts, construction of the stalls are very reminiscent of the scenes you've seen in Assassin's Creed 2, up to the point that you climb up alongside a building. Windows open up, girl sticks her head out the window to see what all the commotion is, and Connor dives through. So we get this lovely sweeping camera angle as it follows Connor running through her living room, bursting out the window the other side and leaping onto another rooftop. It's really nice, smooth motion that feels very organic and also adds that a little bit of extra dimension. Developer kept talking about the new additions they've implemented into Assassin's Creed, and it's small stuff, but the amount of iteration they had to do to actually make these things work. For instance, when constructing Boston and New York, which are two of the main cities that you'll see during your time of Assassin's Creed 3, to keep it authentic, they realised that actually the venues, the avenues between buildings were far wider than anything we've seen in Assassin's Creed 1 or 2. And they had that problem of, right, well, how do we do that leaping across rooftops? But then, again, going back to historical documents, they found that these American cities had trees lying in the avenues, which made the perfect midpoint to jump to for Connor to skip between different rooftops. That ended. We got on to the third piece of gameplay, which was a really fantastic rendition of a battlefield. So Connor comes in to Bunker Hill, rides on horse to this, again, a sweeping sort of view of a valley and this massive battle going on between two groups of soldiers. Ubisoft were giving us some facts and figures that because of the new engine, the new Anvil engine for Assassin's Creed 3, they can draw now up to like 2,000 characters on screen at once. You meet up with a recognisable historical figure. Historical figures will once again play a major part in Assassin's Creed and finding it in the realistic sort of historical tales of the time. They said around about there'll be about 80% of the characters will be based on actual historical figures of that time. What's the other 20%? Who knows? Maybe it's those NPCs. Maybe it'll be wild and wacky people. We'll see. But anyway, that's for another time. So you have to basically work your way across this middle of a battlefield with no long-range weapons. You can grab muskets, but there's a long reload time on them. But the long reload time is how you navigate the battlefield, because you've got a new cover system that will allow you to sort of crouch behind stones and rocks, watch the other side of the battlefield and see the smoke and hear the noise of the guns going off. At that particular point, that's when you have to choose to move, because you have about a 20-second, 30-second window to get to the next bit of cover. They say they've exaggerated that. There's a sort of exaggerated realism, where in real life it took over a minute to reload a musket at a time. They've sort of condensed that down, otherwise it'll be a bit boring for players, or maybe too easy. So you get across the battlefield and then you sweep around behind the enemy lines, climb up onto the trees, and when you're jumping between tree to tree, it seems like a very fluid movement that will probably be automated mostly. By pressing forward, you come to the bark of a tree and you'll just, Connor will swing round it, just sweep round it, run along the X branch, continue. You come across a group of soldiers coming into the battlefield, and this is where he uses his new weapons. In the demo, we saw him standing on a branch above these soldiers as they appeared, and uses a rope dart. Rope dart, apparently from Chinese history, so we're told, so it's a little bit realistic. Long rope with, oddly enough, a dart at the end. But the use is pretty cool. It was only used once in the demo. It may have multiple uses come the final game, but for the demo anyway, Connor did this cool move where he chucked the dart into a soldier below, threw the rope over the branch and dropped down the other side, and effectively hung the guy, used his momentum going up and used his weight to land him safely on the ground about 20 feet below. Soldiers see him, fight ensues. Now, Connor's using the tomahawk, and this again seemed very automated. We didn't really get a chance to see sort of the variation of combat, but what we did see was really, really cool, where he was taking on like 2 to 3 soldiers at the same time, which may mean that there's maybe a little element here where the Assassin's Creed guys have developed the fighting system to be a bit more like reminiscent almost of Arkham City, of taking 2 or 3 foes at the same time, and Connor moving fluidly and realistically and deadly towards these threats. There's a really cool kill move where he grabs one soldier, knocks the musket, kicks the musket, so the musket is aiming up into the guy's face, and just kicks it so it fires, shoots the guy's head open. Brilliant, absolutely really fun. You got the biggest laugh at the actual event. Once those soldiers are disposed of, you have to scale your way around into the enemy encampment using the brand new stealthy move, which involves running up to a bush and automatically dropping down into crouch. As you come through, you see the enemy commander in front of you on his horse, surrounded by enemy soldiers, and Connor just charges them. And it's a really nice situation where the developer's making a point of keeping combat as smooth as possible. There's no break or anything when you're killing one person in particular. So he runs through, kill, jump, kills the commander with the tomahawk, and then that's it. It just cuts to the Assassin's Creed 3 logo. That's 3 little gameplay segments. They talked a lot for, like I said, it was an hour's worth of presentation. There was a lot of sort of target gameplay footage of where they want to get to with the game. This is concept stuff they did like 2 years ago. Big team. It's been in development ever since the Assassin's Creed 2. They've got people from Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, as well as the original Assassin's Creed team on it. 8 studios around the world are apparently helping out in creating this game. This sounds like Ubisoft's biggest project yet. You can find out a lot more information on our extensive preview, which will be on the site right now, as well as an interview with Matt Turner, the lead scriptwriter from Assassin's Creed 3, and his thoughts on creating the character of Connor.